This gentleman in HVAC sales in 2023 finished number one in the country at $6.76 million. In 2024, he finished number 5 in the country at $6.54 million. And this year, this gentleman is on pace to do $8.2 million. How do you keep inspired every day?
I'm not just doing this for myself. I'm doing this for my wife, my 2 babies. I'm doing this for this massive team of amazing people behind the scenes, and realizing that now if you lose the sale, you lose the neighborhood.
And that is just something you developed from another salesperson? Where'd you get that?
Just over time, kind of the realization, and then also in just talking with senior specialists on our team, senior specialists throughout the nation, the foundation is very similar. And then it's just all about tweaking it to make it your own.
Do you have a step-by-step process that you follow?
You'll be able to relate to this. The only step-by-step process is there is no step-by-step process.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Wisdom of Wrench podcast, otherwise known as the WOW podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Comerford, and we've got a great show planned for you today. We've got a gentleman that's joining us from North Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina, a company out there that is just such a premier organization, yes, inside of Wrench, more so throughout the entire country, Morris Jenkins. This gentleman that's joining us today in HVAC sales in 2023 finished number 1 in the country at $6.76 million. In 2024, he finished number 5 in the country at $6.54 million. And this year, he's battling with Brandon at it be going back and forth between 1 and 2. And I know Mr. Booth is right there. 1, 2, and 3. These guys are just having a Robbie Booth are having a great time battling each other. This gentleman that I'm going to introduce here in a second is on pace to do $8.2 million this year. Unbelievable. Our guest today is Bud Viniconis, and I think you're going to all find that this gentleman has got an incredible story, an incredible success story, an incredible background of success outside of the trades, also inside the trades. So let's get right to it. I'm going to welcome Bud. Bud, how are you? Nice to see you today.
Nice to see you as well, Kevin. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, wonderful. You're welcome. Wonderful to have you on the show. I think right out of the gate, our people are going to get a really good sense of your energy. So I would love for you, if you could, Bud, just to kind of back up and share a little bit of your background and sure. Where you grew up, and then what happened before Morris Jenkins, and then your time at Morris Jenkins. Let's hit all that.
Sure, absolutely. So born and raised in Charlotte, and spent most of my life here. When I was younger, from about 0 to 5, my dad used to work for KLM Airlines, which is a Dutch company. So we spent a lot of time moving around when I was younger. Spent some time in Texas, lived in Georgia, actually lived in the Netherlands for a little while before elementary school started, and then even spent some time in your neck of the woods, Kevin, out in Foster City. So I still have some early memories of watching the hang gliders. I think it's Fort Funston that's out there. I'm sure you're familiar with it. And then from there, he transitioned into a more permanent role back in the Charlotte area. So here's where we planted our roots. So elementary school, middle school, high school, all in Charlotte, and then even went to college where I met my bride-to-be at the time at Appalachian State University, majored in criminal justice, and from there...
I still remember when they beat Michigan. I still remember.
Michigan. Yeah, so
right? Didn't they beat Michigan?
They did, yes, sir. Absolutely.
That was legendary.
Absolutely. So while at App, after graduating from there, I segued into a career in law enforcement, and I was a police officer just outside of Charlotte for about 5 years. And we'll talk a little bit more about this later on, but realized it was it was time for a change. Priorities had begun to shift, and then segued into Morris Jenkins. So I came here from law enforcement. I was permanent night shift by choice, just because we all know that's when all the fun, juicy nonsense happens. Mm-hmm. So I left there at about 7 a.m., 0700 hours on a Sunday morning, and started at Morris Jenkins at 0700 hours on that Monday. So we have a very interesting program here, similar to yours, Kevin, the Champions University, where it's a high-paying career without a 4-year. And me personally, I've always had an affinity for just tinkering and working with my hands and then meeting new people. And this career ticks both those boxes. So it took me, when I was looking at getting out of law enforcement, it took me about a year to do some real soul searching and figure out what are we going to do. And spending most of my time in Charlotte, and you can see I'm in our training guru's office right now. So pardon the lava lamp, and we've got our Mr. Jenkins bobblehead right here. So on
I love it.
TV,
I love it.
Always seeing Mr. Jenkins, and then coming from a background in law enforcement was, okay, everyone's got an ulterior motive. How is this guy going to be behind the scenes? And in talking with more people when I was thinking about my career change, because it's not very natural to just transition from, putting handcuffs and bracelets on people to wrenching on heating and air conditioning units. Then it turned into Mr. Jenkins, just in finding out that he's just as sweet in person as he is on TV. So that really solidified for me that, okay, this is where we're going to start growing the tree and planting our roots. So
what years are this? What year are we talking? When you were in law enforcement, give me those years.
I was in law enforcement it was from 2013 to 2018, 19, and I've been at Morris Jenkins for 6 years now.
Okay.
And going through Tech Builder, that gives you just kind of teaches you just enough to be dangerous, where again, that's a good thing. And then you're thrown to the wolves, and you start out as a maintenance technician. From there, I transitioned from a maintenance technician to a demand services diagnostic technician. And then about 3.5 years ago, I got my heat and air conditioning license in North and South Carolina. And that was around the time that they transitioned me into the clean shirt side of things. So after that, I've been in the residential specialist role.
Yeah, that's great. So you had some success though, as you went through the Tech Builder class. Tell us about that, because you come out of the Tech Builder and you become a maintenance tech, and you're doing some pretty special things as a technician.
Right. Absolutely. And that's really the great thing about it is and Morris Jenkins, along with most of the wrench group, has developed a crawl before you walk before you run mentality. And that's exactly what it is. So they're putting you on tune-ups, safety checks. You're going out and just assessing the equipment, figuring out how can you optimize that equipment for that customer? How can you give them to a solution to really give them a solution to a problem they don't even know they have? And that's just all about asking the right questions that we'll talk about at length here momentarily. And then that's kind of the crawling stage. And then from there, it's, oh gosh, the possibilities are endless. And that's what's so great is you can really go from 0 to 100 in that maintenance department alone. And then from there, you're in a whole different league when you get thrown into diagnosing. And you're that customer, kind of like from a law enforcement, when someone's having that life-changing moment, you're who they call to bail them out and to get them out of that hard spot. And that really opens up your mind even more. And then from there, moving on to being a license holder and moving on to the sales side, project management side. Oh, that's a whole different league. So it's great that it's ever changing. It's constantly evolving. And that's what I really enjoy is that you're never at the top. You're always chasing, looking for more.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So you were sharing before we started the podcast a couple of performance metrics that you had achieved at Morris Jenkins that no other tech had achieved. And you asked me, I don't want to be braggadocious. And I'm like, no, Bud, I want you to be braggadocious. Our audience needs to hear what your track record of success is. I mean, it's awesome to see what you've done the last 3 years, but so they know, like, this just didn't happen. This is a 6-year overnight success story.
Right. Yeah. And let me preface this by, we've all heard the saying, and I consider myself a turtle on the fence post, where that turtle didn't get there by themselves. I mean, there is an entire team behind me right now in this massive, amazing facility that helps guys like me get to where we are today. And that's the beauty of it, is there's so much guidance and support and just amazing individuals at this organization, both personally and professionally, along with the rest of Wrench Group, that we're able to learn from each other. And the platform that you guys have given us to connect with like-minded people is just awesome. I mean, it's phenomenal. So back to some performance metrics. When I was a maintenance technician, I was the first tech at Morris Jenkins to do, first maintenance technician at Morris Jenkins to do $1 million in revenue. And that would be considered more of the tech generated lead category. And then from there, moving on to demand. And we've since had guys hit it, and it's just so great seeing it. And we've got a guy that last year he bested me, and it was like, I just seeing the growth. It's awesome. Just going back to that. It's better to give than get, and just saying that, okay, hey, these other guys are taking the torch and running with it, which is just superb. From there, going into demand services, first technician at Morris Jenkins to do $4 million from a tech generated lead standpoint. This was before we transitioned to Wrench Group. And then again, I know you've shared with some of the numbers from a sales standpoint. So it just incredible to think, where we were, we meaning my wife and I, to where we are today. It's awesome.
So good. So good. So well deserved. We talked a little bit about Jonathan, who was the president of Morris Jenkins, and his journey.
Right.
And
yes, sir.
He did it through the tech builder program, or the maintenance technician. I think he actually did it because he married Blair, and it was just immediate. I mean, he's like, why not? I'm just going to marry Blair. I'm going to marry the owner's daughter, and I'll immediately become this great. No, it was such a different story than that. I like to give him a bad time. But it's just so neat for me, because I know his story quite well, about his progression as a maintenance tech to then going through the whole process of being a top producer, and he and Alan going back and forth for so many years, when $4.5 million, $5 million was unheard of. Like it was when $1 million was iconic, and these two guys in Charlotte, North Carolina, all of us are like scratching our heads. How in the world are these guys doing north of $4.5 million? This was like 20 years ago. Unbelievable. Maybe 15 years ago, 15 to 20 years ago. It was incredible. So then you mentioned something really quick. I want to go back on this. You said turtle on the fence post, and the team is there to help me. How do you, one of the things that I always share that salespeople, especially top performers, have to be careful of is the disease of me. And knowing that it's natural, it's normal, that, hey, how do you keep yourself elevated out of that?
I'd say that goes back to just my beginnings, how I was raised. So when we moved around a lot, again, when my dad was with KLM, I got to see that this is a big place. This is one hell of a speck of sand that we're traveling through the universe on. And just everything's bigger than me. Everything's bigger than you. It's all bigger than us. And what I really enjoyed is just hearing people's stories and hearing people share their stories. And that's how I realized that, okay, yeah, this is just bigger than me. It's not only me, and you've got a team behind me helping me get to where I am today. And just the level of gratitude is almost overwhelming because of how much is owed to who helped me get to where I am now. So it's just really taking my childhood and using that to shape how I view other people and how I just enjoy hearing their stories.
Mm-hmm. How about law enforcement? When you were a police officer, how did that translate? Like, what are some of the things that you learned as a police officer that have helped you as a comfort advisor, comfort consultant?
Right. Well, a lot of it is just interacting with people. I mean, that's what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, is asking those questions, flushing any snakes out from underneath the bed, as one of our fellow specialists on the team would say. And it's just, you just have to be genuine. And that's what I firmly believe is the key to the city, is just being genuine, where you're here trying to help these people, and it has to be communicated in a way that they know, okay, this guy's got my best interest at heart. He's looking after me and my family. And then the rest is history. The rest just writes itself. So in dealing with high stress situations from a law enforcement standpoint, that has really helped me deal with the situations I encounter just on a day-to-day basis. There's a good saying that I really like, and it's, you catch a lot more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. And law enforcement was very similar to that. The one benefit to law enforcement was that, oh, you're buying what we're selling, whether you want to buy it or not. Mm-hmm. So transitioning to heating and air, it's vastly different. Mm-hmm. But from a law enforcement, that really helped just set the stage for this career and just lifestyle choices that we make on a daily basis, mm-hmm. where it's all just putting people first, putting your fellow man first. And that's what really gets you to where, and we might have to edit this one out, but it's just putting other people first so that you can help them. And going back to, really, it's better to give than get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. No way we're editing. That's all good. That's all good stuff, brother. That's all good stuff. This word genuine. Pretend like you're talking to someone that's getting into the trade, someone that may be getting into sales. Like, okay, Bud is saying that I need to be more genuine. What's that look like?
So just being truthful to the other person and showing them and communicating with them that you're here to solve their problem. You're not here to try and pull the wool over their eyes. They've got a need and you've got a solution.
Yeah. Okay. And it sounds like a lot of that came from your upbringing. Mm-hmm. Sounds like a lot of that came from just your mindset of having gratitude and remembering where you came from. Sounds like a lot of that came from, again, just remembering those that came before you. Am I getting that right?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah. So your success goes for 6.5 years. I mean, the $1 million, the $4 million, as a maintenance tech and then a diagnostic tech. And then, now these last 3 years, the numbers and the results that you've put up. How do you keep inspired every day? Like, what is it that you're doing to keep, like, what are some of the success habits that you do mentally to keep yourself at the top of your game?
So a lot of that is realizing, back to your point earlier, not developing that me mindset, that I'm not just doing this for myself. I'm doing this for my wife, my 2 babies. I'm doing this for this massive team of amazing people behind the scenes that allow us to get to where we are when we're walking across that stage in Nashville and in Las Vegas, and realizing that I owe it to them to make sure I am giving every call my all, because if I don't, the saying of, and years ago it used to be, if you lose the sale, you lose the neighbor. Now, if you lose the sale, you lose the neighborhood. I mean, you lose everything because of these gadgets right here. And again, just with regards to how everyone's 8 seconds away from making that Facebook post or that LinkedIn post or that Reddit post, and just keeping myself grounded that I owe it to them because they've done so much for me.
It probably speaks to why your closing ratio is so high. Because it's so high. It from what I saw, it's in the upper 60s continuously. Even reaching 70% at times. Did I see that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that makes sense. If you're the magnitude and the gravity that you're putting each of those calls, it sounds to me like every call I go on, I am running the risk of losing the neighborhood. Wow. That's powerful. And if, wow, that's powerful.
I mean, to carry. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. And gosh, if we could have all of our salespeople that looked at the magnitude like that, wow. And that is just something you developed from another salesperson? Did you get that feedback from, like, where'd you get that?
Just over time, kind of the realization, and then also in just talking with, senior specialists on our team, senior specialists throughout the nation. And it's just the foundation is very similar and the principles are very similar. Mm-hmm. And then it's just all about tweaking it to make it your own, so that it goes back to being genuine. When I'm in a customer's house, I'm talking to them like I'm talking to my wife. I'm talking to them like I'm talking to my buddies, and them seeing that also aids in them opening up. And that's a big part right there that we'll probably talk about here shortly, or we can go ahead and dive in now. But it's all about, you make a friend. People buy from people they like. Mm-hmm. And if they like you, they trust you. If they trust you, they'll open up to you. And that will just help uncover all these objections that they may have had lingering in the back of their head. And it just brings it to the limelight, and you put it all the rest. Instead of, man, why couldn't I close that one? And then, oh no, you've closed that door before they even had a chance to escape out of it.
Yes. Yeah. So I love that. Let's talk a little bit about the process in the home, and what are some of the questions, techniques that you use to build that rapport specifically? Right.
And a lot of being in the home goes back to before you even get to the home.
Okay. Let's start there. Yeah. Take us down that.
Right. That prepare step, which is just so critical. And most wrench group organizations, they've had Next Start training. So you understand you've got the physical aspect, then you've got the mental aspect. And from that mental aspect, attitude is everything. And that's one thing that law enforcement really helped me, is being able to just flip the switch. You can have, with it being sales, we all know it is psychological warfare at times. And the highs are high and the lows are low. And it's just navigating through those peaks and valleys of law enforcement that helped me transition to learning from my last call, but leaving my last call at my last call. And I hope that makes sense. That way you're not dragging that baggage into the next call and then dragging that baggage home that night. So from just a mental standpoint of the attitude's everything. With the physical standpoint, look the part. So much of law enforcement is just not walking up to somebody looking like a soup sandwich, because they can sniff that on you. They can smell it on you. They can smell if you're not being sincere. They can smell if you're not being genuine. They can smell if you don't have their best interests at heart. And that was just another aspect of that career that transitioned into this career as well.
Yes.
That, I mean, and don't get me wrong. Yes, I'm looking like I'm in my church clothes right now, but there are plenty of times that I go into a customer's house and it's a little dusted up. We might be looking like a bit of an Oompa Loompa, because customers also wanting to see that you're working. You're not that smooth talking salesman with these one-liner zingers just coming in, throwing at them. It's just, you're there to solve their problem. And that's what so many people appreciate is, okay, this guy, again, it goes back to, he's looking after my best interest instead of his own. So preparation is key, in addition to just psychologically preparing for the call, relying on your teammates to make sure they're doing their job, to make sure that, and that really goes back to accountability, is, holding myself accountable, that I'm going to do the job to the best of my ability, holding my fellow teammates accountable, that they're going to do the jobs to the best of their ability and their jobs to the best of their ability, where researching the house, home ownership, how long has that customer been in the home? How many names do we have on the deed? I had a customer last week we had 3 names on the deed, and I could tell just by the way the names were, okay, we've got a young girl, young lady, probably a first-time homeowner, and then we've got 2 more names on this deed that's probably mom and dad. So do we need to get them involved in the situation? It's really just having all of that lined up as much as you can, so that you know which avenue and route you need to go while tackling that call.
It's great. That's great. So when you're in the home, how much of your process is relationship building versus, say, the technical makeup of getting out of the house, going up the attic, whatever it is that you need to do? Give me a sense of what that is. Do you have a step-by-step process that you follow?
And it's interesting, and you'll be able to relate to this, and you can attest to it as well, Kevin. The only step-by-step process is there is no step-by-step process. And it's so fluid on these calls that you might go in thinking, I'm going to hit this, and then you actually show up on scene, you show up on that call, you show up on that lead, or even on that diagnostic, and, oh, wait, we've got to adapt and overcome. We've got to pivot. Oh, gosh. Oh, now the neighbor's walking over and he's beating on the door. Now we've got to get him in on the conversation. So it's just little things like that, I'll get questions of, what's the answer? And the answer is being genuine, but the other answer is there is no answer. The one size fits all answer is that there is no answer. Like you just, because you're constantly adapting based on how you're gauging and reading that customer. For instance, with the greet step, and the greet step, heck, that begins before I even get involved. That's with, okay, what was their response to our technician? How well of a job did they do? How enthusiastic without being overbearing was our customer service rep on the phone. So that just kind of ties back into that teamwork. But with the greet from my end, it's going to last as long or as little as it needs to. Mm-hmm. There's no set specific, I've got to hit boom, boom, boom. I mean, you're just ever changing and ever adapting through the comment. There's a Bruce Lee quote, be like water. And that's what we do every day. Mm-hmm. We just flow and adapt to obstacles we may see in our path or things that might be thrown at us out of left field. Mm-hmm. So that's a big thing as well. I mean, yesterday I was in a customer's house and we hit it off great right there in the foyer, and it was 20 minutes and we were talking, and guys, my goodness, it's been 30 minutes. We are busy as the dickens right now. As much as I'd love to sit back and share some Arnold Palmers with you, I got to get to work, and I know y'all are trying to get this fixed. So then it's, do your thing. And and that just goes back to me. I just enjoy hearing people's, like even Kevin hearing you and Carolyn's story and hearing Amanda share her story on the pod. Like, it's just, I enjoy hearing that and that transfers, which I think that just helps in, wow, like this guy actually cares for me and my family, not just himself. And that's huge, is just sales being that transfer of enthusiasm where you have to make sure you're not overbearing with it, because you don't want to be jumping around like a Jack Russell Terrier in their house. Mm-hmm. But it's just that, okay, this guy, he's going to solve our problem. We've got the right guy. We've got the right company. We've got the right solution. Let's get it done.
Mm-hmm. Well, subtly, you just shared a technique. You just shared, and you said my name. You said my wife's name. You said Carolyn.
Yep.
And you said Amanda, who's the co-host on so many of these podcasts. And that means something to me, that Bud just shared that. So to me, what I just think you shared, and whether you did it directly or indirectly, the fact that you shared names. And is there something you do in the home to make sure that you remember a name? Do you write it down, or are you really good at remembering people's names, and how often do you use it? I know some might say that's a little thing, but it's a big thing.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think that the most important word you will ever hear is your own name. So there's a lot of power in that. And it just goes back to not overdoing it, because that's the art, is that it's that delicate dance of, when have I said too little? When have I said too much? And you're looking for that Goldilocks sweet spot. Mm-hmm. So me personally, that it's just, I have to focus and just want to make sure it's Kevin, right? I'll intentionally, hey, just make sure that I'm remembering their name properly, because we hit a lot of houses a day. So I take that upon myself to just, okay, yeah, we're going to get this locked in. And that just increases the engagement and takes it to a more personable level than what most people are expecting when their local heating and air guy shows up to their house.
Right.
Just that extra level of engagement that gets people to really open up.
Mm-hmm. So are you spending a ton of time on the rapport building?
Rapport is huge. Absolutely. And that goes back to earlier, we spoke about people buy from people they like. Mm-hmm. Make a friend, be a buddy. If they like you, they trust you. If they trust you, they'll open up to you. So rapport is huge. I mean, that's such a big piece of what we deal with, because linking rapport with objections, rapport helps you close those doors, meaning the objections, before that customer can run out of them. Mm-hmm. Where it was something where before it was, if they don't trust you, they're not going to tell you. So if it was, I don't know about this guy, I'm a little shaky, he seems like he's trying to, sell me a bridge up north, then they're just going to, okay, let me chat with my spouse and we'll never call you guys again. I mean, that's the response you're getting when they say that. That's going to be the outcome. So going back to the rapport building, it turns into, but like I've heard Morris Jenkins is expensive compared to everyone else. And then you can just follow up with, Kevin, I understand what you're saying and I get it. Yeah, we're not the cheapest in town, but why do you think Morris Jenkins is the most popular? And then just, if you've had that rapport, it's like, that makes sense because that's coming out throughout the call. And then it's just going back to the best time to close an objection is before it becomes an objection. So that rapport helps keep those doors slammed before that customer is, we often talk about it here at Morris Jenkins that from start to finish with that call, you're walking a customer down a hallway. And you've got, it's basically a hotel hallway where there's door after door after door after door. And it's all about just closing those doors because they're going to take the first one out. And you're trying to get them to the end of the hallway because that's where they get the win. We get the win. Everybody wins. Mm-hmm. So it's just back to getting in front of that before it becomes a harsh reality. Because when it becomes that reality and they're hitting you with that objection at the end, you didn't do a good enough job preparing on the forefront. I mean, in a perfect world, and we hear objections all day, every day, but in a perfect world, when you flip that page and you hand it to them and because the first two talks loses, it's going to be, well, let's do the green one. Mm-hmm.
So tell me some of the, if I'm thinking about, well, let me just back up. I know, because I've heard it over and over again, the culture at Morris Jenkins, we do really well with the client that wants a relation, or the relational client versus a transactional client.
Correct. Yep.
How does that, explain that a little bit more to me.
So you've got two different kinds of people. You've got price-minded and you've got value-minded. And price is going to be that upfront number. Value is going to be the long-term throughout the entire relationship number. And that's where it's so critical, just making sure you're selecting the right provider for any of your big purchases in life, because you're essentially married to that person, to that contractor for the next 10, 15, 20, 25 years. And that's huge. So with value-minded, when price, let me make sure I'm getting this correctly. When value meets or exceeds price, you've got to win.
Yeah.
You've got a deal. Mm-hmm. And that's where, by building the value, we've talked about it, or y'all have talked about it on the podcast, by building the value, you shrink that price. Mm-hmm. And then it turns into, hold on, you're saying, Kevin, I can call Service Champions on 11:59 p.m. on a Sunday night on Christmas Eve, and you guys are going to answer? Mm. And it just goes back to, it's taking risk and uncertainty in the unknown and replacing it with peace of mind. Mm-hmm. And that value and peace of mind go hand in hand.
That's great. So you're in the home, you do the greet step. Typically, what's next?
So after the greet, then getting into the explore, walking through the house. The interesting thing about the way I do things, and I'm not saying like this, it's me, only me, but just one thing that I've really made an effort to do is,
we want to know what the $8.2 million guy is doing, just so you know. so that's all we want to know.
you want to ask questions while you're working. And I learned this from Alan, our chief sales officer, our sales guru, is that you're not pulling out the interrogation lamp and grilling them in their foyer. It's you're asking questions while they are watching you work. And it's, like I'm walking over and measuring the returns, making sure that we don't have any airflow issues or any imbalances, taking a look at the filters, and you see those carbon filters that are putting the system into a chokehold essentially. And, oh, Kevin, who in the house has allergies or breathing problems? And then you're going up and you're climbing, you're taking a look at the carbon monoxide detectors. And, God, guys, what are y'all's plans for this place? It's such a great neighborhood. We love coming in here. And as long as you're working, they're just going to give you all sorts of juicy nuggets of knowledge. It's different when you're just sitting there and grilling them. And it's, okay, what is this guy trying? What is his ulterior motive? And again, when you're working and they're watching you work, it's just a natural conversation. I had a customer who yesterday was up in the attic with me, and we were both beating and dropping sweat from our forehead like we had just gotten out of the swimming pool because it was a nice balmy 135 degrees up there, and just invited him up in the attic and had a conversation. We're talking about and all of a sudden he's just starting to talk about what he wants to talk about. And I'm going along with it because it's better to be interested than interesting. And then at the end, it just turns into, man, I was planning on shopping around and shopping you guys because I've heard y'all expensive. I'm ready to rock and roll and get this done. So let's go ahead and go with this option. So that it just goes back to that rapport and that explore step and asking those questions while you're working. That is huge.
So you've mentioned expensive a couple of times, and it's something that all wrench groups
absolutely
deal with.
Yes, sir.
Morse Jenkins,
no
being
secret. Right.
Being 30, being 40, maybe sometimes even 50% more than your competition. What the price, like you said, the price. So how do you come to grips with that? Because sometimes salespeople struggle with that. Sometimes, in my opinion, what I've seen is salespeople can get pucker factor, especially when there's a price increase. Hey, Brandon comes in, guys, we got to have a 5% price increase.
You mean a raise for us? Yeah, a raise.
So that's that. Well, that's interesting that you just said it that way, because one person says what you just said, which is fantastic. We just got a raise. And it almost, even if you're feeling
as we're squirming in our seats.
Exactly. Yes. Even if you're feeling a little bit of that pucker factor, just to say, hey, and I don't want to put words into your mouth, but is that what's going on?
And that, going back to your question, you have to believe it. You have to believe in it in order to sell it. Yeah. If you don't believe in it, you're not going to be able to sell it, because that goes back to earlier when it's that customer is going to smell it on you. They're going to, okay, this guy doesn't even believe in the organization that he's with.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't believe in it, do you think they're going to believe in it? Absolutely not. So it goes back to just believing in it. I believe in the value that Morris Jenkins provides. Just like you believe in the value that Service Champions and the Wisdom of Wrench podcast and all these facets of our organization, we all believe in it. And you can't sell it if you don't believe in it.
So you said something, believe it. And if a salesperson, if their belief is around that furnace they're selling is $4,000, I'm selling a furnace for $8,000. If you put the belief on just the furnace or the air conditioner, you're in trouble.
Absolutely.
And I want you to talk about that, because you said you have to believe it. And that's where I think sometimes, in my opinion, salespeople come up short. They're just comparing the equipment and the price.
Right.
So can you expand a little bit on that? Because I think it's a bit of a sales game to yourself. You have to constantly sell yourself on the belief.
Yes, sir. And the way I view it is, I'm not selling that furnace. I'm selling Morris Jenkins. And
That's
it's
good.
just back to, it's done right, it's done quickly. It's a no nonsense organization where if you call me with an issue, I don't care what time it is, we are going to bend over backwards to solve it. And we are not the take your money and run organization. We are going to stand behind you throughout the entire length of our relationship that we hope is indefinite, because after you, we want to pass on to your children. And, going back to asking the right questions is, while you're working, Kevin, hey, I see this is the first time we've been out here. How'd you hear about Morris Jenkins? And if you're asking that question while you're, my home warranty company's been giving me the runaround, and they sent all these taillight Tommies out here that can't solve it, and they're out here digging in their belly button, and then, or my mom and dad use you guys and love you guys. I mean, that's just getting all of those nuggets of knowledge out of that customer is so huge. But I don't view it as I'm selling a furnace. I view it as I'm selling Morris Jenkins. And every lead I go on, I treat as a job interview. I treat it as if this is, there's a degree of us trying out this customer, but we didn't call the customer called us. They're trying us out. And that starts, even if they decided to book through our online web portal, that relationship and that interview begins then. That begins long before I show up at the house and ask if my truck's parked okay. Mm-hmm. So
how much are you interviewing the customer to gauge whether they're going to be a Morris Jenkins client as they're interviewing you?
I think that goes back to the price and the value.
Okay.
That dynamic is trying to figure out, okay, and it's really, yes, I'm asking questions so that I can better assist that person. But at the end of the day, they're interviewing. It's predominantly them interviewing us. We're not cold calling, cold knocking, door to door. So of course, with the level of service we provide and our caliber as an organization, we're going to be a great fit for anyone. Mm-hmm. They just have to see that, and it's our job to show them that.
Right. You mentioned something earlier I want to go back on that I think I want to make sure that a salesperson that's watching this understands it. You, at the fabric of who Bud is, truly love to hear people's stories.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. That's it. Yes, sir.
And that's just who you are.
Yes, sir. Yep.
And it just seems like you have this ability to be able to take the spotlight off yourself when need be. And I'm making assumptions here. I mean, I'm not really. $8.2 million says this guy takes the spotlight off himself, right? I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Yet it's such a deep rooted part of who you are. It just feels like. Am I catching that vibe correctly?
You are. Yes, sir. And that's, I mean, I give a lot of credit to my wife on that. Katie, we met in college, and she was with me throughout my law enforcement tenure, where there were plenty of, times I'd come home from work and there'd be some blood on the uniform or some bruised up knuckles. And she was, honey, I'm not even going to ask the question.
Yes.
So I got to do a bunch of dumb, stupid nonsense she'll never hear about. And that's for the right reasons. But that is just in her encouraging me to be that way as well. Because that's how she is. So it's me trying to mirror that I see in her. Mm-hmm. And that helps me do it when I'm just in my personal life and my professional life, where people have so much to say and so much on their mind. And I just enjoy, Katie and I both, we just enjoy hearing that stuff.
Mm-hmm. And you get excited about it. I mean, I can see it in you. If people that are watching this podcast, you can see the genuine interest in who you are, in your excitedness to when you're just talking about, I want to hear more about people. I want to hear about their story. It just comes through. It just oozes out of you, but it's wonderful. It's wonderful. And I really hope that, I have faith that people are watching this, listening to this, and they learn that, hey, here's a guy that's a top performer, and he has this incredible ability to be able to take the focus off of himself. And it sounds like it translates into your personal life. So how does this show? Let me ask that question. How does taking the focus off yourself show up in your personal life and putting spotlights on others? Or does it?
It does. Absolutely. And, really with the kids, I mean, we've got a 5-year-old baby girl and a 3-year-old baby boy. So we're in that fun phase of life right now. And just that, and that, just to kind of take it a step back, is and this is also what caused me to go from law enforcement to the trades, is priorities, where they've shifted. And in law enforcement, my wife and I were still together at the time. We were dating at that time. We were married towards the tail end of my career as a police officer. But it was, when I first got in, oh baby, it was all about me. It was all, I want to carry the gun. I want to drive the fast car. I want to get into the juice, the meat and potatoes. Like, that's it. That's part of the fun. And then over time you start to, okay, we're looking at that next chapter of life. And now we're talking about putting the ring on it. We're talking about welcoming children into the household and into our family. And the priority shifted from me to us. And then it was, okay, it's time to segue into something else. And that's what led me here.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful transition. So back to the call. Tell me about some objections. Clients that you get. What are the toughest ones that you face? What, as great as Bud is, he gets objections, right? So which ones are you getting?
We are only human. Absolutely.
Yeah. Which ones are you getting, and how are you battling through them? Let's give some people some of your techniques, some of your nuggets.
Sure. So again, going back to objections, that customer is objecting because you didn't close that door.
Okay. Give me an example.
So and this goes back to rapport. So this is going to be a little bit of an in-depth answer.
Okay.
Going back to the rapport, the number one objection we get as an organization, and this is all of Wrench Group, and Kevin, it's going to be the price.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is the number one objection.
Yep. So be prepared for it.
Exactly.
It's coming.
Get in front of it. Get in front of it. And that's the beauty of what we talked about earlier, is with it being a call by call and a case by case basis, you might have to touch lightly on it, or you might have to just steer into the damn thing. And going back to what we talked about earlier of just asking those questions, to getting that customer to open the door and realize that, okay, after you've covered everything with them, well, damn, I understand why they say you guys are a little bit higher, but I see the value in what you guys are providing. So with the rapport, because there's a whole other tail to this snake, the rapport building helps circumvent that price objection to them just building that wall at the end of the call, and you're sitting there spinning in the mud. with no traction, because then you're done. You're done. And that was another thing, like we hit on it earlier, that first getting into sales, it was, all right, let me hear these one-liner zingers. They say this and you're firing off with that. And that's that shoot and reload conversation that doesn't work. It needs to be, the quote, correct me if I get this wrong, listen with the intent to understand, not respond.
So beautiful.
So again, not dodging your question, because that's the beauty of it, is if you've closed the doors, they're not going to object. If you've gotten in front of all that, they're not going to object, because you've cleared it before it became an objection.
And how did you get in front of it? Like, were you right up front? Were you up front letting the client know that you can get this cheaper from someone else? So
Absolutely.
Are you okay? So
Yes,
that's really important, because it sounded like you have you have a client that'll come to you and, hey, but I hear you guys are the most expensive, and you got to have you have to have an answer to that. And we heard that earlier. But if they don't say that, if they know in the back of their mind, because they know in the back of their mind, they've probably got somebody.
Neighbor, that neighbor saw the service van and said, "Oh, you called those guys? Yeah, here's a story about them." And that goes back to throughout the call. So back to kind of my process. After you've got the greet, you've got the explore, then we've got the present. Yeah. This is where the rubber meets the pavement, baby. So with that present, education goes so far. And a big thing that I use, that we use at Morris Jenkins, is that most people are visual. I love drawing and sketching things out for customers. And this is just I know some guys do the 3D and make it look sharp, and I love it. I'm just a very rudimentary, bare bones, basic 2D. I'll put a little heart in the compressor as I'm explaining it and educating to that customer about how this system operates. And I think that's where you see a lot of shift in mindset, just more like a physiological shift that I'm able to just pick up on throughout the call, is where you can start to see, like, okay, not only does this guy, this company, this organization know what they're talking about, they're explaining it to me in a way that I can understand. And so that I'm now part of this process, and you're getting them involved. And then in addition to that, just like the fella that I invited up in the attic, I just got to read on my psychological pat down. I got to read that he's still a little shaky. So, man, throw some shoes on, join me up here. Let's take a look at this together. Let's figure out what you got going on.
So you're getting that client. You're engaging that client if you even get the sense.
Correct. Oh, if my spidey sense starts tingling, we know what we need to do, right?
And it's really get them involved. I love what you said. Have them watch you, and I will ask questions as they're watching me, because if I ask questions when they're watching me, that's when they open up.
It's just natural.
Interesting, which is really cool, really, really special. Very, very simple, very rudimentary, kind of like your visual drawing, your 2D drawing sketch.
Nothing fancy. You do not want to hang my drawing on the fridge when I'm done with it, needless to say. So, but it gets the message and the point across.
Yeah.
And then you're taking that and me, before I even die, and now let me preface that by saying that every call is different. So it's that case by case basis, as we know. Majority of the time, before I even dive in to opening up about Morris Jenkins, and Kevin, just to give you a little bit about who we are, who's in your house right now, is talking about that educate and drawing it out for them. And then from there, I'm transitioning to showing them pictures of their current equipment, showing them videos. A lot of times learned from Alan that, I'll have my fingers in my shoes and I'll be in the video just because they see it and it's real and it makes it theirs instead of, oh, this is so canned and this is just some nonsense he pulled out of a PowerPoint. And by doing that, you're now talking about, okay, this is what you've got. This is how we're going to make it better. That stuffy bedroom that you and Carolyn are always waking up in and the bed sheets are sticking at you. Oh, brother, we fixing that. And it just gets them like, okay, now you see that lean in and it's okay. Now we got them on our side.
That's great. That's great. So we do the greet, we do the explore, we do the present. We're getting a few objections in there, and we know the one that's going to come around is going to probably be price. You got a situation where you've got a client that just can't get over the 40% price difference. Where are we going? Where are we going with this?
So, and again, this is if at the end of everything, they're still throwing it at you. Because if you've done it the right way, they won't even hit you with it. And that's the beauty. That's the dance is flushing out. And this goes back to having that rapport. You know, Kevin, well, what 40%? Where did you get that number from?
So you're
just turn it and just see, okay, well, you know, Bud, we've got a rental property down in Florida and we changed that system about 6 years ago for $4,500. And it's just little things like that, and it's interesting because throughout the customer objecting, a lot of times they will interrupt themselves or the spouse will interrupt them, which is why it's so critical to get that audience there. Have the audience. So that way it's not me fighting the objection. It's their significant other. And I am losing every battle I go up against my wife. So it just goes back to, I can just sit back and, well, honey, knucklehead, he told you that it's an in-house guarantee. Think of how many times that other company had to come back out when we were having all those issues. And that's where the beauty is, you're just sitting back and that, you know, party B is handling party A.
Yes.
And it's just, and that's where you're not, because going back to the, you catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar. There are times with, I don't want to say the word confrontational, but if you're arguing, you're losing. And again, it's just, it's so, I mean, you got to put on the best damn poker face this side of the Mississippi to not show any emotion when Mama Bear is lashing out on Papa Bear. We're going with them. I understand everything he's telling me. The other guy was in here for about 15 minutes and threw a piece of paper on the ground and said, you know, call us when you're ready. He didn't take the time to educate. He wasn't thorough, which is, oh, Kevin, that's another huge piece of is be thorough. And that's a big thing that we communicate to our techs, and we lash out on some techs from time to time. And I know I was lashed out against. It is our job to do a thorough evaluation of that entire system. And that doesn't mean that right when you meet that customer, you need to go make love with that heat and air conditioning unit, because you got to spend time even as technicians building that rapport. And that's where, from a technician standpoint, it's great, because I know we're kind of tangenting here that I told you we probably do. But from a technician standpoint, oh man, you're their buddy. They will just exude all sorts of juicy information to our techs. And that's where that's such a huge component and a huge key, because when you show up and when I show up and my teammates show up, they know what we're there for. And it's all about, they think they know what we're there for. They have a preconceived notion that, oh, we're there to raid their bank account. And it's up to us as the specialist and the comfort consultant and the advisor to overcome that. So that's something we have to do. But from a technician standpoint, from a CSR standpoint, I mean, these customers will pump so much information at them, and getting that information is great because it goes back to they're trusting you, they're showing you. And that's just part of the beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you probably already answered this, but if there's one thing that you think Bud does in the home that's world class, that separates you from everybody else, what would that one thing be?
Surround myself with world-class people.
So your word world class has to do with
others,
something outside of the call.
Yep.
Okay.
And world-class people meaning both personally and professionally outside of that call, because those world-class people is what got me to where I am today, what got you to where you are today, with your mother and father's influence and all that. And like, that's just,
so if I'm hearing you correctly, are you saying that your associations with world-class or great people is what you think you do world-class? Your associations and
just surrounding myself,
the people that you choose to surround yourself with.
Because you are who your friends are.
Mm.
And we've all heard the saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
And I am not the smartest person in my room. So it's great that just in the teammates and that's what's so neat about, as I boast on Morris Jenkins, the caliber and quality of personnel that we have here is nearly mind-boggling. And I'm so grateful and humbled to be a part of the organization. And when you look at the GOAT numbers, it's not, oh, we got one guy from Morris Jenkins, maybe two guys from Morris Jenkins. Good golly, Kevin.
Right.
It's just incredible. I mean, it's just, oh, are they about to do a full sweep? I mean, no, but it's incredible that the people that are at this organization, that's who motivates me to give that world-class service and that world-class experience for our customers. And then at my house, providing for my wife and our two rugrats and just everybody, like, it's just, that's all that I take and internalize. And okay, I owe it to all these people to make sure I'm giving them, these customers, this world-class service.
So, Bud, what's next? What's next for you?
Oh,
Meaning 6.7, 6 point, again, you repeated that, then 8.2. I mean, what do you see? Because you've been on this career path, and I think it's really special for all of our audience to understand that a high-paying career without a 4-year. This gentleman came in with no HVAC experience, zero, right? He got on this career path, this career track, and has accelerated, and that opportunity is available to anybody, inside wrench, outside wrench. It's there. It's there if you want it and you want to grab hold of it. What I'm curious of is what does Bud see? What's next?
For the foreseeable future,
yeah,
I'm still a fledgling, even in the sales industry, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing.
Yeah,
I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, so
and that's another thing. Going back to with the wrench group and the GOAT Awards, and walking up on that stage, and you've got guys with 20 years experience and 25 years experience. And here's this FNG coming up here and I'm so grateful to be a part of that group. And it's just so interesting. And yeah, we'll dig at each other because it's guys being guys. Yeah. And that's part of the fun, but really just continuing to drink from the fire hydrant that we're drinking from, continuing to take it all in, because again, talking about the maintenance avenue, you're in a league. The diagnostic demand services avenue, you're in a league. Sales is in a whole different league. And now that I'm still new to that league, I'm thrilled. It's fun. And just, bouncing ideas off of guys who have been doing this a whole heck of a lot longer than I've even been on planet Earth. It's just great. And that's where one of the things that really drew me to sales is that it is ever changing. It is constantly evolving. Gone are the days where you're slapping the roof of that condensing unit and that customer saying, we'll take the blue one. It's just, there's so many more facets and things for better and things for worse that customers have access to. And that's where I view it as a mental game of chess that I'm playing when I'm on these calls. And that keeps me enjoying what I do. So to answer your question right now, holding what we got. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. I say that, and I ask that question because Morris Jenkins has always been out there on the forefront. And I think we're, a couple few years away of having our first $10 million salesperson in a year. I think we're getting closer and closer. And do I think it's going to come from Morris Jenkins? Well, they certainly have been out in front in many different respects for the 25 years that I've been associated with Dewey and 15 years with Jonathan. So it's going to be exciting. I just want to thank you, Bud, for sharing your knowledge, sharing your insight. I got 3 pages of notes here on just great tips that I'm like, okay, this is stuff that is really good, really good. Some of the stuff that you shared, that I think if people can go back and listen to it again, there's just so many different nuggets that you gave us. So I see you very much like how I see my life, which is I always want my future to be bigger than my past. You have demonstrated that from, working in law enforcement and working as a maintenance tech and then as a diagnostic tech, which is the key to being inspired is to always make your future bigger and greater than your past.
Absolutely.
So as we end every podcast, my friend, Bud, here's to a bigger future, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all so much. And again, thank you to the Wrench Group for just connecting all of these like-minded people, and just in watching the podcast and hearing the wisdom of Wrench, just from all the folks that you've had on. Oh, it's been incredible. So thank y'all for doing what you do, because that allows us to do what we do.
Awesome. All right, Bud. We'll take care. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Bye.